Hey students, let's begin by reviewing a little bit. So we're going to go over a few topics here: growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and some basic knowledge you should have from English. Okay, and then we're going to talk about semicolons. So it's going to take about 10 minutes and replace our class on Thursday the 24th. And so let me get started. So, first, we've had a little bit of debate on growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So, let's just go over that a minute. So, some of you were saying, I just can't do English. I just can't figure out punctuation. I just can't start the essay. I just can't finish the essay. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Um, so there's a difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. Of course, you want the growth mindset, you don't want the fixed mindset. So, what's the difference? So, fixed mindset, you think it's a matter of IQ. Some of you said, I can do math, but I just can't do English. Well, I mean, chances are you had a good teacher in English. Yeah, me. No, you had a good teacher in math, or you started young, or your parents helped you, or someone helped you, an older brother, sister, and so you caught on to math. Okay. Um, and also the business about IQ. So up until very recently, even colleges, universities, they basically made you take the SAT, which is kind of an IQ test for of sorts. So now they've thrown that out. Okay. Um, so fixed mindset, you just think you're good at math or you're not, basically, and that's not how it is with anything. I've gotten better with math as my brain has developed. Judgment is kind of the last thing that develops, right? And so if you take care of your body and mind, then you will be able to progress at in any subject, including, you know, why is it that women were considered not good at engineering? Well, because they, since they're kids in kind of typical Puritan American society, they're not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to do things with shapes and put together big puzzles and work on cars and stuff like that. Well, now there are women in engineering, okay? And the difference is it's just whether we teach you, whether we pay attention to you as teachers, okay? And whether the rest of society. So it's a whole cultural issue as well, okay? Women are supposed to be good at, sewing and cooking. They're not supposed to be good at math and science and engineering. Well, we're finding that's not true. It's how you're raised. Okay, it's what you get interested in. It's did you have a teacher that really nurtured you in that subject? So the same in English. All right. So let's move on here. Uh, so also with the fixed mindset, you're avoiding challenges to prevent the possibility of failure. Well, with writing an essay, it's not really failure, not. It's do you have the parts that you need? That's really break it down as a formula, as I did on the board the other night. Okay, so I mean, it's not God given talent, it's what you develop. And it's the same with cooking, okay? It's the same with shooting a rifle, target shooting, whatever. It's practice, it's patience, it's thinking critically about the subject. Okay. All right. And also, I think the fixed mindset. If, especially in elementary school, they told you that you wouldn't be able to do math, whatever. Okay. Then maybe that followed you for a long time, or you struggled with math a long time. I struggled with reading because I couldn't hear. Well, I got out of that. I outgrew the hearing problems, had tubes in my ears, put in my ears to drain the stuff, and now I enjoy reading. Okay. All right. So I think that's probably enough about growth mindset, but don't get yourself set up so that you think you cannot do something that you really need to do. I mean, a number of you are interested in nursing. That's going to be very tough, but it's competitive. It's a lot of information. It's memorizing. It's a lot. It's reading. It's knowing how to highlight. It's reading for information. It's not necessarily reading for pleasure the way you would in, I hope, Strange Pilgrims. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. I realize there's a glare on here. So let's move on to some basic skill. I say skills, but I don't like the word skills because it sounds like you're working with a garden tool or something. So reading, okay? Definitely you need to read. You need to read textbooks, but you also need to read, basically, read a story. It's really for pleasure, but you need to read carefully and pick up on those things like Strange Pilgrims. Every single story, author on purpose, narrator, they're trying to trick us. Okay, and they're laughing. They're still laughing about it. Okay, writing. So that's another basic skill you need to have. And again, I talked about the Anglo-American essay where we repeat. You say it once in your thesis, you say it again in the body paragraphs, and then you say it a third time in the conclusion. What could be more repetitive and, in a way, kind of trite and boring to people who have written like the European type of essay? Okay. All right, listening. I think we've got a little problem with that, listening. So remember, if you're talking with your friends and trying to figure out the previous assignment or what's due, then you're missing what we're moving ahead with, okay? So listening, put a big star next to that. I had my pen. And so that's definitely important. You need to listen, you need to learn from lecture, you've got to learn a little more. Again, be open-minded to new ways of learning. Lecture is definitely one of those. Speaking. So some of you are afraid to speak in class, so I think you need to open up and develop that. I'm not a very good speaker. I know that. I'm working on it. That's how it goes. Next thing, critical thinking. You can't quite see that. There, how's that? So critical thinking, for example, symbolic logic. And remember, your thesis is actually the conclusion of your argument. So here's what you have. P for critical thinking implies Q. So that's like your first premise. You know, all people are mortal. Second premise or assumption, Socrates is a person. Oh, wait. Sorry, I screwed up myself. P. Okay. Then your conclusion, ergo or therefore, Q. So you have all people are mortal. Socrates is a man or a person. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. So that follows from your premises. Now, how do you know it's valid? Well, you have to prove these. Prove. So this is what you do in the rest of your paper. You prove your premises. So you would, for example, in this paper, to get to Socrates is mortal, you'd have to prove, all people, all people are mortal. So people, Socrates is a person, therefore Socrates is mortal, okay? So, anyway, when we move on now to research, you're going to see you have to, this is your thesis, which is really the conclusion of your argument. And then you're going to have to go through and prove, here are the problems, here are the solutions, therefore, this is a valid conclusion, okay? Okay, now, hey, so that's critical thinking. That's one example, or fallacies, that's another. Now, hey, the other thing, understanding abstract concepts. So this is another difficult issue when we talk about justice or fairness. Okay, I mean those are abstractions because they're hard really to pin down. Justice, fairness. Another one might be gender. It's becoming more, male, female, non-binary. So there's some room there for some abstraction for sure. Okay. Um, yeah. So everyday things are actually abstractions. We try to be concrete about things, but it's pretty hard. Concrete. There's an example of not being able to be, you know, um, basic. What's another word for concrete? It doesn't mean the cement thing. So there you go. So that's tough. Abstract concepts, like even marriage can be an abstraction. Marriage, money, of course, the big ones like justice, love, truth. Those are all abstractions. So you need to figure out, like growth mindset, fixed mindset. They're not abstractions, but that you got to know what they mean. Okay. All right. English can just be an abstraction. Well, what do you mean? The English language? Do you mean grammar? What? Okay, same thing with Spanish or math. They're kind of abstractions until you figure out what the content is. All right. So that's that. So we've got growth mindset. So we want to have a growth mindset in all our classes and not prejudge ourselves or set ourselves up to fail and just say, I'm just not good at English. I'm just not good at grammar. Well, do the activities, figure it out, work some every day, work with your friends, sit with your friends, and figure out what you need to do. Okay, so the other thing, semicolon. We're still having trouble with this. So let me move my handy dandy thing here. Okay. So let's go over the semicolon again. Remember, it looks like this. So you've got a period on top of a comma. Believe it or not, that's a semicolon. That's weird. Okay, so where do you need to use it? Between or among independent clauses or sentences. So remember, they have to be independent, independent. Put this in your memory. I stands for independent clause, semicolon, independent clause. Okay, you don't need to put but in there. You don't need any of that. Okay, so I came, I saw, I conquered. Famous words of Julius Caesar. Where would you put the semicolons? I came, I saw, I conquered. Oh, okay. So you just need two and put a period at the end. Okay, so I came, I saw, I conquered. So notice you've got independent clause, independent clause, independent clause. They're short. You've got the same subject, different verb. That's just perfect territory for the semicolon. All right, next one. We went to the movies. We held hands all night. Okay, so can I just put a comma there? What should I put? No, you've got we went, we held. It's kind of repetitive. So you want to use the semicolon. Don't use a comma there. You're going to be guilty of the comma splice. Has to be semicolon. All right, last one. Do not use the semicolon to replace a comma. Okay? So when we go to the movies, semicolon, we hold hands. What's wrong with that? When, we're starting with one of those words, like coordinating conjunctions or subordinating conjunctions. When, since, while, okay? So that's a dependent clause, and this one's independent. Therefore, let's change this to a comma. So, when we go to the movies, comma, we hold hands, period. Okay, so that's really it. So you need to remember, most cases we see semicolons, you have to have, a sentence on both sides. And remember, independent clause just means a sentence. So sentence, semicolon, sentence. So we can easily write that like this. Or you can put independent clause, semicolon, independent clause. Okay, but you need to know what independent clauses are. and which ones are dependent clauses. Okay, so go ahead with the reading to Ghosts of August this week. And so that's all I have to say. So really, we're going back. We need to make sure you guys have a growth mindset and you're not just saying, well, I'm no good at English. No, we all need to move ahead and you need to get better. Okay. And then we went over the English basics and some grammar, the semicolon. Okay, see you next Tuesday. Bye bye. Good night and good luck.